Welcome back to the Data Science Hangout, everybody, and Happy New Year if I haven't had a chance to see you yet or say that. But if we haven't met before, I'm Rachel and I lead customer marketing at Posit. If Posit is new to you and you're joining this Hangout, Posit builds enterprise solutions and open source tools for people who do data science with R and Python. We're also the company formerly called our studio. I like to add that in there too. But I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Libby, as well.
Hello, everybody. I'm Libby. I'm a community manager here at Posit, helping to foster our Hangout community and help host the Hangout. And I'm also a Posit Academy mentor, where I help professionals do more with data by learning how to use R and Python in their jobs.
So happy to have y'all here with us today. I can see a few more people joining from the waiting room too. The Hangout is our open space to hear what's going on in the world of data across all different industries and get to chat about data science leadership and connect with other people facing similar things as you. So we get together here every Thursday at the same time, same place. So if you are watching this as a recording on YouTube and you want to join us live in the future, there will be details to add it to your own calendar below. Thank you so much to those of you here who have helped make this the friendly and welcoming space that it is today. I love getting to see that people are now friends from the Hangout and getting to chat with each other here in the Zoom chat. We're all dedicated to keeping this that friendly environment. So if you ever have feedback about your experience or anything at all that you want to share with me anonymously, good and bad, or even suggestions for topics to dive deeper on, I will share a Google form in the chat with you right now. But you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
Um, and at the Hangout, we love hearing from you. This is a community-driven discussion. This is not like a podcast where Rachel and I are hosting. The questions come from all of you. So we really, really encourage you to get together in the chat, connect with other attendees, briefly introduce yourself, where you are, what you do for fun, share your LinkedIn, share your link to your website, all of that stuff. And we love hearing from you, no matter your years of experience or your title, your industry, what languages you use or don't use. This is a place for you, and we want you to know that this is a place to like hang out with each other and us. There are three ways to jump in today and ask those questions to get things started. You can raise your hand in Zoom. We'll call you to just unmute and ask your question. You can put your question in the Zoom chat. We will call on you to unmute and ask your question. If you happen to be somewhere where you cannot talk or your mic doesn't work, just put an asterisk somewhere in your question and we'll ask it for you. There's also a Slido link. You can ask questions anonymously if you feel like, and that's totally fine as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much again for being here today. I'm so excited to be joined by our two other co-hosts today, Rich Iannone and Michael Chow, software engineers here at Posit. And we'd love to have you both introduce yourself first and maybe share a little bit about your roles here at Posit, but also what you like to do outside of work too. Rich, do you want to go first?
So I'm Rich. I work at Posit. Been there for quite a while, since 2018 or thereabouts. And working on packages. Started with R. Now more lately working on Python packages with Michael. For fun, I like to read, watch movies, play some instruments, go outside sometimes. Maybe not now. It's like 20 degrees out, really chilly. But still, I try to make it outside because fresh air is good. So that's basically me.
Love it. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Michael Chow. I'm in Philadelphia and working with Rich on Great Tables. Um, in my free time, what do I like to do? I really like to cook a lot, and I've realized lately too, I thrift a ton. I'm just always combing through, I feel like, thrift stores. So, a lot of good stuff, out there.
What's your favorite thing you've thrifted?
Wow, that's a great question. Actually, I think my favorite thing is something I didn't thrift, but passed on and has haunted me my whole life, which is a year or two ago, there was this beautiful fringy leather jacket that I assume a cowboy died in and then left to this thrift store. And For some reason, I passed on it, but every day I think that I could have been that fringy cowboy, and I gave that opportunity away. But maybe someone else out there now is living their best fringe leather jacket life, so maybe there's like a silver lining to the story.
I hope the fringe jacket comes back around to you somewhere.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I know we just kind of introduced yourself, both of you around GT and Great Tables, but I thought it might be really helpful to start off by talking about what those both are, if somebody has never heard of them before.
I can introduce GT and Great Tables. Basically, you need to make tables, and you use R or Python. You can use them to make tables. We made that because it's such an obvious missing thing, like static tables, like not like the non-interactive type you see in everywhere, basically. Just wasn't really a good or maintained solution that had different output types that you can just like, put your data in from a data frame and just get a nice looking table out wherever you need it. Um, so I basically jumped at the chance to work on this when I found out I could work on this, which was pretty soon after joining Posit, actually, or within our studio. So that is GT Great Tables in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think something that drew me to it too was that I went to a Posit Conf and I saw all the people interested in tables, and it really kind of knocked me back because in Python I had never styled a table before. And so I felt like I was missing out on this big party, and people were like coming up to Rich. I saw Daniel, who does GT Summary, chatting with Rich. There were like these GT heads. And so I feel like that really wanted me as a Python user to get kind of in on the action.
That
Yeah.
is a great point. Rich is really great at engaging the community and getting people talking about and like, um, just engaging around a software thing in general. I feel like that's a talent, Rich. I would love to know if you have any tips on how you go about promoting a package. There's so many people out there who have made amazing things that they don't talk about very much and don't get used a lot.
Yeah, basically just don't be shy like I was before. Just get out there and say things. And more importantly, like have stuff to talk about, like add new features, ask what people want, answer questions, kind of like do everything you possibly can in the time that you have. Um, and I think it's helpful just to be there essentially and listen. And if people want a feature, don't say no, no, I don't want that. Just make the feature happen, I think. If it's within reason, I think. That's been my sort of like thing. So yeah, just getting out there, talking a whole lot.
Do you feel like talking on LinkedIn was the best way to go about that? Or do you think there's other avenues that are better these days?
LinkedIn like gets highest number of impressions that I maybe I worked hardest at LinkedIn. It's kind of weird because I've got a lot of like contacts and followers, and maybe that was to my advantage. But I found like LinkedIn gets the highest reception of basically any other social network. So I'm trying Blue Sky. I'm trying to get in there and like post things, but it's kind of slow going. It really helps if you have sort of like a big account to start. But even if you don't, it's totally fine. You could just like you have to start somewhere. So yeah, LinkedIn for me is kind of like where it's at currently.
Awesome. Michael, anything
Never
to
thought I'd
add
say
to
that.
that?
I'm not, I feel like Rich is way better at kind of the social media connecting, but I do feel like conferences are so good. Like being able to poke around and just ask people what they're using, and also to have the chance to kind of like sit by someone and have them pull up something. I think that kind of stuff's really useful. But the other thing I'd flag is that Rich and I think Curtis um, ran the Posit Table contest, which seemed like a really neat way to kind of connect with people and engage people in the discussion.
Yeah, I wanted to celebrate the people who entered the table contest and those that won that. I don't know if Curtis, you could share the link in the chat here as well. Those are super impressive.
Every time I see the submissions, I'm like, wow, you can do that with this. It's like you just never imagine that. It's like, and you see them like, whoa, I get blown away every single year that we have that contest. It's like, damn, each time.
Well, Michael, I know you just mentioned conferences, so it might be a good time to ask you about you. You were at a conference this week. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? But also, like, how did you go about connecting with people and starting to talk about the stuff you're working on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I went to the Transportation Review Board Research Board annual meeting. So it has like I think over 13,000 people in DC for all things transportation. I'm really interested in public transit, but TRB also includes things like anything to do with transportation. So roads, there are like asphalt people there talking about the best kind of asphalt. Um, but uh, I think what was really useful was I met up with a lot of people at public agencies who were using R and R Studio, and a bunch of people who are using GT in uh, Minneapolis's metro planning organization. Um, and so I don't, it was kind of a funny one because I didn't really know a lot about the area. So I felt kind of like I was cosplaying a transportation person. But um, so this was maybe a funny example of one where I was kind of like out of my element. But I feel like going into a really new place and kind of like finding the R and Python users was a good way to see like where are people analyzing data that I don't that I otherwise wouldn't really identify quickly. And I felt like those people were really excited to talk because they're like pretty deep in a domain. So it's less likely that they're popping into like Posit Conf and just like chatting about data science generally.
How did you actually find them? Like, you're like the people who are really excited about Python and R, but at this huge conference, how did you find them?
So maybe this is a good social thing. I made sure to post on LinkedIn before I went to the conference about a week before, just that I'd be there and like what I was looking for. We cheated a little bit. I put this post on the Great Tables blog. I'll link it here. So I just made a blog post titled Contributing to Public Transit Data Analysis and Tooling. So it's kind of like I tried to set up all the flags before the conference to say like, why am I here? What am I looking for? And this blog post really served as almost like a calling card, like a way to explain really easily to people what am I doing, and with the hopes that if they know like a colleague, that they'd be able to just pass it to them too. So there was a little bit of setup to kind of make it work with LinkedIn and the blog post.
Nice. That's it. That's a great tip. I see Stephanie, you asked a question a little bit earlier. Do you want to jump in here first?
Of course, I'm in the middle of eating lunch.
Sorry.
Yes, no problem. So my question relates to like a current workflow we have at work that will have people who are not data people make table templates in Excel to define analyses. And it really helps us know what they're looking for in an analysis. And then we have someone run the analysis to populate the table, and we use OpenXLSX for this right now. But it would be great if they could somehow make templates that would work with a GT workflow, but they're not our people. And has there been any thoughts about that?
Are you saying going from like Excel to GT or from
Yeah.
There's actually a package out that does pretty much this. And like I didn't put in the GT like README like I do for other packages that use GT. I think it's called GTS or something to that effect. And I forgot and I feel bad for not knowing this, but there is like it's new. Like it was just out in the last 2-3 months. But yeah, it's sweet. It goes from Excel to GT. I'd love to have the other way going. And that's kind of like a thing I promised a while back, like having GT to Excel. But I think this seems to fit exactly what you need. At least check it out. If you can find it. I'm sorry. Wish I knew the
Can you
name.
do it? Can you do it without data that pre-exists? Because we struggle, Stephanie, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you asked this question. We struggle with the same thing, right? And so we're
Okay.
often trying to just come up with like synthetic data to populate a table to then replace it with like a bunch of X's and like just placeholders, right? But I really wish there was a way to just come up with a shell that didn't presuppose data exists.
Yeah, and I think some approaches have that, like GT Reg, not GT Reg. There's another package that basically populates, has like a plan for like, and doesn't require data. You basically just start with like a template, exactly what you said. And it's a pharma package, and the name totally escapes me again. I'm really bad coming up with GT affiliated
I see
packages.
Daniel's gonna know. Daniel, what is
Please,
it?
Daniel, help me out here.
We're building in the pharma space. We're working a lot with something called analysis results data sets right now, and it's very, very easy to build an empty ARD. That's the analysis result data set. And if you have an ARD, then you can go straight to tables via GT summary, which we're also kind of generalizing to be able to do kind of anything at this point with ARDs. So Travis, we can talk, or anyone else who's interested, of course.
Thrilled.
Marcos, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm coming off mute. So one, I had a question because I posted an issue. The most recent version of Great Tables broke Shiny Live compatibility, and I'm just curious how important it is to y'all to keep Shiny Live working with GT. It's the new dependency on CCS inline that doesn't work. So I posted an issue in the GitHub. I just thought I'd mention it here since I got the ears of all of you.
Yeah.
And then, so you can address that, but at a high level, I do like Great Tables. I've started using it more and more. I think I'm a Python person, so I didn't really use it on the R side. I would just, and I posted another comment, I think recently about Bootstrap styles, which I think someone responded to, and I appreciate that feedback. But just at a high level, I just want to encourage you all to think about tables as more than just for numbers or even charts. Like I use tables a lot in a lot of my web apps and stuff, and obviously those are, I put buttons in tables. I need links to be conditional on other columns in tables. So just think big when you're thinking about tables, because I feel like a lot of table packages really focus on formatting numbers or whatever. And you support Markdown, which is great. And that really helps me for some things. But I was looking at some code that I wrote a week ago where I dynamically create these tables from pandas data frames in Dash and Plotly Dash, and it's crazy what I have to do. Like I need, okay, if these two columns exist, then this thing needs to be a hyperlink, and I do all this stuff, and I wrote all this code to do it, and so it's just a high level comment that like tables are awesome and you can do so many things with tables, and so don't think of them as these static things of someone's got a bunch of data and they want to show numbers. Sometimes people want to do really interesting things inside of these tables.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm doing that too, actually, like using Great Tables as like sort of like software for something else. And you kind of need to go into like the guts of like Great Tables to tease out a few things you need to program tables. So it could definitely expose more of those things if you want, maybe create an issue for that. And I saw your issue on CSS inline, and what it can do is make that an optional install, because that raw, like sort of like as raw HTML, doing that one sort of like trick of inlining CSS, that seems very extra. So we could definitely make that one package an optional install, so you don't have to break Shiny Live. So that's something we can do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think too, on the Shiny Live note, now that Shiny Live, so we went on this big arc where another engineer at Posit, George Stagg, just got polars working in WebAssembly. So Shiny Live, I don't know if now or very soon should support polars.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about that. I
Yeah,
actually rewrote a bunch of code. I had a Shiny Live app and I rewrote a bunch of code to use pandas because I couldn't use polars on Shiny Live. And then
right.
like a week later, they were like, "Oh, polars is going to work in Pio."
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons we haven't been using Shiny Live too much either, is we've been using a lot of polars in our like docs and just working with great tables. But now that Shiny Live does or will really soon support polars, I think we'll start using it quite a bit more for examples and demos and things like that. So hopefully that'll let us kind of keep it in the loop a bit tighter to keep an eye on these kinds of breaking changes.
Yeah, and I think we're generally trying to like reduce dependencies, like the trail of dependencies on Great Tables. Should do the same thing for GT, but for Great Tables at least, we're going to try to like sort of get rid of some things that, or replace things that make it heavy because of issues like this, essentially.
Rich, I am struggling to find the package that you mentioned.
Yeah, me too. I swear it exists, and like I saw it initially on, I think LinkedIn or somewhere else, maybe.
Okay.
It
We
has,
might
it
need
has
to
GT
figure
in the
out, like,
title.
how can we
Like,
make it more broadly known and
Is
easier
it
to
GT Extras?
No, it's not GT Extras. That is great, by the way, but it's not that.
Yeah.
It's like a new
Okay.
Is
thing.
it
I thought it was like
T format?
GTS. No, I
There's
think it
T
starts with
format, which I know does ARDs and things like that, but maybe that's not it.
We will find it.
I will
But
follow up one way or
Ted,
another and promote this thing and put it on like the README for GT.
perfect. Ted, I see you had some questions on table design, and there's a long thread with people sharing links, so I thought it might be helpful to ask that now too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I asked it in chat. Just curious if you all have any resources for papers or books on table design principles. Like I'm putting together a workshop, it's kind of a two-part workshop with table design principles and GT Great Tables. So,
Oh yeah, we got stuff. We got stuff. There's like this old thing that we talk about all the time, this 1949 manual of tabular presentation. We're still mining, it's a gold mine for ideas. And like, I know it's old, but it actually, it's got a ton of good stuff that's relevant today. But for a newer thing, there's right behind me, there's this book. I'll show me the numbers. And look at this, it even has like tables on the front cover. Like that never happens.
I
And
literally bought that on Amazon yesterday.
oh, okay, excellent. Yeah, it's a great book. A great book. Like, of
That's
course,
great.
like it has more on plots, like graphs they call them, but it has tables, which is amazing.
Yep.
And so there's good stuff there. Other than these two things, it's kind of hard. We've been looking. That's not like we haven't tried. There's not much. Maybe that's where we step in. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And before we jump, what was the name of that book?
Oh, show me the numbers. It's got a really catchy name. So yeah, here it is again, in case you haven't want to screenshot this or whatever. Yeah, it's really good. Really good. Got it in hardcover.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, let's call on somebody else who went into the chat first, and then Libby, I'll hand it back over to you. Abigail, do you want to jump in here next?
Okay, thank you. So I swear this is not an attempt to make you troubleshoot my Great Tables heat map problem on this call. But it was New Year's Eve and I was trying to get my table to work and I couldn't. But my question is really like, how much work do we need to do in issues to make it useful for you guys when we're reporting an issue? Because I totally like did not do the thing where I made it reproducible and reported it on GitHub because I was like, that seems like a lot of work. So like, how much work do we need to do? Like, what do we need to get you in order to give you an issue that you can actually do something useful with?
Well, I think not much. Just like we can get the conversation going. Just maybe a screenshot and maybe some code, and then we can just discuss and then zero in on the actual issue and what needs to be done. Trick is just to start. And don't be shy like I am all the time with issues. Just get in there and we'll eventually get to the heart of the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I feel bad that it's not working for you, especially
no,
on New Year's
it's
Eve.
okay.
Oh
I honestly, I
Day.
think I know what the workaround is, but I just like don't want. It's like a bad workaround. I don't want to do it. So
sometimes you just got to do that. But yeah, we'll try and fix it. Yeah, just get in there. Yeah,
I think it's fair
I
too.
love it.
Some,
Go ahead, Michael.
I think some tools really push for like a reproducible example right out of the gate, like, and you might see like templates that try to kind of push into that format. I think, like, I don't think it hurts like to just open an issue and if you're in the middle of it, just mention, like, you could have a single sentence that just says like super fast what you're seeing, and I think that's totally fair because worst case, we just ask for more information. I think best case, like, we actually can just read that sentence and it's like something we've thought about or can point to more information. I think that's fair. Like it's very fast to kind of like scan a sentence and either ask for more or like maybe we actually know something about it and can help you like out right away.
And something super effective is just like a screenshot marked up with like lines or desired things. I've seen that a bunch of times, and that's actually way better than a text description half the time. It just really just gets right to it. Yeah.
I love it. I think Abigail might be feeling something similar to that I've felt before, which was like I see tense interactions in in issues where other people have not given enough information, and then it kind of makes you shy about doing it yourself. Like I'm gonna get yelled at, right? But it's really nice to know that Rich and Michael are both really nice, everybody. So if you're submitting something
we won't scold.
Right, they're not gonna scold you. You're in good hands. wonderful to know. And kind of on this same thread of like uh, anxiety or nerves around doing stuff like this, I wanted to ask both you, Rich, and Michael, how many packages did you develop secretly or privately before you were actually comfortable publishing packages and putting them out there, letting people see them? And how many do you have just like sitting in the wings or the back burner that you don't talk about?
Okay, Michael, you go first. Okay, stew on this
Yeah,
for a
it's
second.
such a great question. So many. I just feel like, well, I feel like the frequency of packages has stayed the same. Like lots of small packages, like year to year. I would say there's like so many, like pour one out to the ones that didn't make it even out of the gate, like that are like a repo with just an idea where I had a big dream and then gave up on it right away. So I think to your question, like how many packages have I done before like releasing things? I think that so many because I think it's good just to get into the habit of building packages and like it's okay to do it in the open, but I would say there wasn't really like a turning point where I was like, now I can start releasing good packages to the world. I think I just did really bad packages and they got like better and better over time. And now there's like a healthier mix of like good and bad packages. But I would really lean into the joy of putting a bad package into the world as kind of like, I think at the worst, a bad package is almost like a blog post. You're just like bringing someone into your problem and giving them a lot of like work that you did. And that's like when I was working on my PhD in psychology, I was like putting out packages that um, I don't think anyone really used or needed, but at the least it was good for me and like good to show maybe my collaborators and even think about how I would set up and kind of try to communicate things. So I would say so many packages and still doing a lot of bad packages today. I don't really do them under the radar as much. I try to just do them as a public package and no one
So
will look.
learning out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so much of our advice has come down to like just do it anyway, even if you're nervous about it. Rich, what about you?
Yeah, I started this like 10 years ago, probably around the same time as Michael. Maybe a little over 10 years ago. Doesn't matter. A lot of bad packages. I mean, I was learning stuff at the same time, so I didn't mind. But I saw people doing stuff out in the open. I was like, I want to do that too. It was great. And like some people actually use the packages that the early stuff that I wrote. And like it was fun to interact with people and just get to know people. So that was even better than like writing the package in half the time. It's like interacting with people. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they would help you out. That blew my mind that people would help out. So yeah, no regrets about bad packages. And like the first one that made it to like when I was working on R, the CRAN was like, I don't know when that was, like 2014, like maybe a year after I started. Some of them I just kept like off CRAN, like not never on CRAN. Um, but yeah, I had some rough experiences with CRAN initially too. Like the first package I submitted was a data package and it got rejected for editorial reasons. And that's totally fine. But it didn't like break my spirit, as it were. I just submitted something like maybe 6 months afterwards and got in there, and it was fun all the while. Like there's ups and downs, is all I'm saying, but mostly ups, I would say.
Everything's easier when you have friends.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I do one fun example of a kind of funky package I've been like tinkering on for the past few years is this thing called data backend. It's not really like exciting for data analysis. It's more like a something someone might use behind the scenes when making a package. But the reason I bring it up is that if you look at it, it's like there's one issue which is like Joe Chang 3 years ago just collecting cobwebs. Um, but and there's no docs, it's just a big readme, but it was really good for me to like just put the idea out and I would give it to people at conferences to kind of check their temperature on it. Um, we start out by just copying this package into Great Tables. So I just copied the Python code into Great Tables. And so in a lot of ways, this repo is just me kind of like tinkering on an idea and kind of like laying the parts out for people to be able to talk about it. And I've really enjoyed that kind of workflow where it's just like I'm not really trying to get people to install it right now. I'm more trying to just have conversations and like keep it in one place for chatting with people.
Thank you. Well, on this topic of porting packages, Rich, I know you're working on porting Point Blank to Python, and this is a question that's come up quite a bit lately in the community. What are the best practices for maintaining equivalent R and Python packages, and what are some of the challenges?
Yeah. So best practices, they're pretty much what we make them, because I'm not aware of very many of them, like with words. That's my fault. But I think like having somewhat matched APIs is good. So exactly as they're piped together and you get some results. So in Python, of course, it's not going to be that. It's going to be a bunch of chained methods with some class to start things off. But having the names the same, like or pretty close to the same, is great, and features sort of matched up is also great. So if you have, say, you're working in a place that does both, you can have both versions working at the same time, or you can migrate from one to the other pretty painlessly, one hopes. So that's kind of like my idea of best practices for porting these things. And I don't know, Michael, what do you think of all that? Because we did like great tables in GT, right?
Wait, sorry, can someone repeat the question? Sorry, I'm coming off a cold, so I like am not. I'm finding that I hear the question and I'm like, I've got this, and then I begin talking and I'm like, what was the question? So I want to be sure that I have the original question and then I'm so ready to answer.
It was about best practices for maintaining equivalent R and Python packages. What are some of the challenges there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think some of the big challenges are like how I think consistency, like as long as like the longer you stay with the two packages kind of like very close side by side, the better your life is. And I mean like so for example, I ported a package called pins from R to Python. And one thing that was in my head for a long time was like I want to be able to look at the Python code and actually be able to guess where in the R code the same idea is. And even when I thought in my head, maybe there's a better way to like name something or lay something out, I stuck with that a long time because I didn't want to have to think about two packages. I almost wanted to be able to navigate between each of them. And I find that really helpful when porting is, can I like think in both of these packages at once? Um, and that I think that's like favoring kind of consistency over like innovation when you're translating a package. Um, but on the other hand, I think if you go too literally, you run the risk of kind of uh, really applying, like you kind of slow yourself down right out of the gate. And so I think what I often do when translating a package is I get a giant notebook and I just take really copious notes on the original thing and like a lot of use cases and what it looks like in operation, um, just to get a sense for the big picture. Um, so I can make any like little tweaks to the design before kind of starting out. So I think it's balancing like the consistency of these two things are like essentially the same to like letting in a little bit of innovation that'll help you kind of move faster.
Got a bit of follow-up from before. In the chat, someone found that package that does Excel to GT. I forgot what it was. And funnily enough, like the name is almost spelled like forget. It's FORGTS for GTS, I guess. Anyways, so it's in GitHub. Just look for GTS, like the word for, and then like not the number four, but FORGTS.
Perfect. And
Yeah, that's what you need.
Riley, you win some sort of prize there for finding that.
Thank you so much.
Well, real quickly, while we're talking about GT and Great Tables together, I was wondering, like, was the name choice of Great Tables versus like GT dash Python a conscious branding decision?
Oh, yeah, I forgot how it went down. Me and Michael were brainstorming for a while, and then like somehow Great Tables entered. Do you remember this, Michael? Because like it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
such a fateful day, and like I think we just struck gold. I don't know. It was like a great moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what happened is that GT was taken on PyPI, and I think traditionally I haven't loved naming packages the same thing across languages because I think it hurts with kind of reaching the new audience sometimes. Like people in Python don't like to be called something Py. Um, I think they like to be their own thing. Um, but I think GT was taken on PyPI, so we had a big dilemma, which was we can't we can't name this package this thing. And I think in talking, I didn't even know what GT stood for. Enrichment mentioned it originally meant grammar of tables.
Yeah, but it
And I
kept
think
it sort of like minimal. I didn't like never set grammar tables. Try
yeah,
to
it's
keep some
not
mystery
mentioned in
about
the
it.
docs.
Yeah, it's not on the
So
docs anywhere. It's
I think
like
we
Easter
realized there
egg.
was there was a little tiny chance to like rewrite history and just go back in time and pretend like imagine that GT stands for Great Tables. Um, so that it's almost like an Easter egg for our people, but for Python people, it feels like an original name. Um, and it's available to pip install.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I will go ahead and admit that I did not realize that GT was grammar of tables, and I was thinking it was Great Tables as well. But then when you said grammar of tables, I was like, oh, wait, I think I have read that somewhere. I think I Googled this at some point.
Wasn't from us.
It wasn't. Okay. My goodness.
I
Well,
don't know
as
why we
a
don't do that. We're just weird that way, I think. We
well,
never
there
say
are
grammar
definitely
tables.
people out there who are fielding that question because as a person who teaches R and Python, I get that question. Well, what does GT stand for? What does DT stand for? What does all these things stand for? And I remember getting that question one day and going, oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, 8 years on or whatever. There's a lot of GT lore. Like, still a lot to like many depths to be plumbed when it comes to GT. And
Nice. Well, maybe
doing Great
that's one
Tables.
of the bits of advice on getting your package out there and making it known as just being enigmatic and calling it something that's going to make people ask questions.
Yeah, otherness when it comes to packages. You need that sometimes.
Awesome. Well, there are so many amazing questions in the chat. I wanted to point out that there were a couple of questions that didn't get asked, but I think that they did get answered by Rich and Michael. Neil's question, I think, got answered. Rich, your question, I think, got answered. I see a question, Javier, if you're still on with us, that you could unmute and ask.
Hey,
There he is.
the absolute worst product, by the way, in 2025 is the Zoom web chat. Like, I'm trying to use it. I'm unable to download the actual Zoom app, so I don't even know what I asked. What did I ask?
Oh no. Okay. So I'm gonna just paste your question, Javier, directly into the chat so everybody can see it. And it was
Sorry.
about data entry, like
Oh,
with
yes.
DT.
Okay. So, in some of the Shiny apps that we build, we've experimented with like our hands-on table or DT. Usually we use DT, but like the mechanics of data entry, pushing data back to a server or S3 or something, and getting the data back, or using something where you're polling so that the tables that populate other parts of the app or other people that are on the same app, like getting it all to work fluidly. Um, it's just nasty in DT. And I didn't know if there's any. I don't use GT first off for grade tables. I wish I did. I just don't really have a need for it right now in my role. But I work with people who potentially could. And if there was a way to do data entry with it, I think that would be awesome.
So maybe this is for both me and Michael. Because like the Shiny team has an editable table, but that isn't Shiny, like Shiny for Python. And our hands-on table is a thing, or just hands-on table is a thing that is sometimes used in different things, but like barely, because it requires a lot of engineering work, I would imagine, to get that working right for all cases. Sorry to ask on Michael again, but do you know what the Shiny team is trying to do with their, maybe like spinning it off, making it a separate thing? Because like they have something going there, right?
Yeah, I think for data entry they have the data grid, which is designed to be editable. And let me find it. It's kind of a funny topic. I feel like if you're talking about like, yeah, being able to show a table and then let people edit the values inside the table, and
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of
The
tricky. I
thing
feel
is,
like,
we have I mean, data science should be objective. But what ends up happening in my team a lot is like we're presenting stuff to leaders and we're like, this is what the model is projecting. And they're like, we don't like that. Change that 83.2 to, 82.6 because Jeff over here did some analysis and we trust his numbers. It's like, okay, cool. And so it's kind of this feedback loop where we do this live. We're doing this live right now with DT, but like the table's quite basic, and I love the ability to like add spark lines or just a different level of like aesthetics that GT can do.
yeah, I think it's tricky. Like you can kind of do this in Excel if you like format a table in Excel. Obviously, you can like edit all the cells and update. It feels like whenever we talk with engineers about editable tables, that it's almost like its own kind of beast. It like brings in so many tricky dynamics, like needing to kind of re-render everything and all that, that it almost feels like um, it's it's been easier to kind of like let another thing be the editable table, like the Shiny data grid, and then GT be just the kind of like static.
I'll have to check that out. Admittedly, I just learned about the Shiny data grid today, so I'll
Oh,
definitely look
nice.
at that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I was in analytics before I was in Posit, our studio. And the thing that worked for me, take it with a grain of salt or whatever, is using Google Sheets and just pulling the data in rapid, like as part of a job or just manually to a stat. A lot of people in the chat are saying that too. It could be Excel. Some people use Excel, some people use Google Sheets, or both. It's a little strange. But I think that is probably the ticket, because those other things are, like you said, probably pretty flaky, but in lots of ways. Like the
Thanks.
hands on table part,
Yeah, I
moving data
appreciate it.
around. Yeah, no problem.
I wanted to do a quick shout out here to Luis because I know as we were all talking about for GTS and sharing the package link, Luis is the author and maintainer of that package and is actually here in the Hangout today. Luis, no pressure to say anything, but I just wanted to call that out and feel free to jump in and say hi if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm going to say amazing work, because it's, we should have more stuff that works with Excel. I mean, we have XLSX, but not anything really for GT or Great Tables at the moment. And a lot of people use Excel. It's like not going away. So we should have solutions that involve using Excel.
Absolutely. Well, Arsenis, I see you had a question in the chat a bit earlier. Do you want to go next?
Sure, thanks, Rachel. This was for Michael, who were and maybe Rich as well, if you had an experience like this. But Michael, you mentioned doing some work on a package while you were doing a PhD, and you were kind of learning some of this stuff while you were doing your PhD in psych. And what I'm curious about is how you went about learning the software development stuff that you needed to know to build packages while you were doing that. And just kind of this is a little bit I guess, selfish as well because I actually published a package on CRAN, I want to say in April, and that was the part that was like a complete puzzle to me. How I got it done, I'll never know. But yeah, so that was, you know, do you have any recommended things to read and for all that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think looking back, well, the one big thought I have is that when I was doing research and kind of trying to package up my analyses, I feel like um, both those things are so big that I think it always ended up just better to focus on one thing. Like a lot of times with the research itself is often so involved that to research and package is kind of a big job. I feel like in retrospect, what happened often was if you can like make things reasonably nice, right, and reasonably reusable, it's like if you end up using them for like across like a couple pieces of research, then you're in a good position to start thinking about packaging. But in retrospect, I think I really would have like really done like the research and then maybe like toggled to packaging a little bit and then gotten back into research. Um, but in terms of resources, I think, yeah, I wish I had good suggestions. I think I did a lot of the classic things and just read internet tutorials. And um, I do think for R, things like the use this package is really sort of indispensable. Um, and like Hadley's book on package development is really great. Um, but I think the thing I would do today is just really focus on this idea of the rule of three, which is like before you try to like consolidate things into a function or a package, just use the code and write it out like 3 times or in 3 use cases. And then once you have those use cases, you're in a good place to kind of go back and really think about how would I consolidate this. I feel like that would probably be the most useful thing for me because that would let me like do the job in a realistic way and then go back and kind of think about how would I kind of consolidate a lot of this and spend time like studying and figuring it out. But I wish I had a good book, but
Well,
unfortunately it was a lot of kind of internet stuff.
well,
Eric?
I guess. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go right. I was just to say Eric just posted the rule of three for Wikipedia. Wikipedia, if anybody wants to go look at it.
Cool. So my question was, so yeah, I guess it was a little unclear, but I was curious about, you know, coming from like the social sciences, which I did as well, in economics. How did you go about learning the technical stuff that's, you know, like all the workflow stuff for like GitHub and all that, getting all that right?
Yeah, that's a good
Were there any
question.
resources you focused on?
Uh, I didn't. I think it was a lot of kind of browsing the internet, unfortunately. The one thing that allowed it to happen is that I would say with 2 or 3 years left, I kind of realized I wanted to be able to switch out into software engineering or data science. And so that at least mentally kind of freed me up to do more like studying. I think I started to focus a bit less on research and really toying with software engineering problems. But I wish, unfortunately, there weren't any really specific resources that I looked at. I wish I had better recommendations.
Same thing happened for me for learning like mechanics of like workflows and stuff. It kind of like people would just say, "Why don't you do this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll look into that." And then it just sort of happens, right? When you're in it, you can't help but do things that people do because you get sometimes nudged in those directions. It's kind of weird how that happens.
Well, I
Yeah,
felt like I was just bumping around. I mean, I got it done, right? But I felt like I was like, okay, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to try this thing that I saw on this blog or whatever. And yeah, it all worked. And I understand it at a high level what I did. But yeah, just learning the weeds of it all was.
I think it's kind of how it goes. It's this quasi-random walk you do, and eventually you fall into like things you're supposed to do. Like,
Yep, just got to do it.
yeah.
Thank you for the great question, Arsenis. I wanted to ask, because we are getting to the top of the hour, somehow this hour goes by so quickly. We always ask about career advice. Is there any career advice that you've gotten or that you've given that you think is really, really valuable? And I'll direct this to both of you, whoever wants to go first.
Michael, you go.
Okay.
You go.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think that some of the best advice I think is out there on the internet. I think Dave Robinson has really good advice on putting your work out there. And I think like two pieces that stick out to me are his advice, you have permission not to be boring for documentation and teaching, that it's a real art, but I think there's so much value in putting the interesting part first and then working back from that. A lot of people build forward when they write docs or tutorials. They like show you how to build the whole thing, and then finally they're like, now you can run it and see something interesting happen. I love the advice, you have permission not to be boring, which just tells you to put the interesting bit first and then figure out all the details. The other thing is that I think he has a Posit conf or our pseudoconf talk on the unreasonable effectiveness of public work or something. And I think he's so good at encouraging people to blog, but one of my favorite things that he's said is like a little rule of thumb is like, if it's something you'd like mention to 3 people, then it's worth putting in a blog. And I think that's a really nice rule of thumb for thinking about how can I go from just like chatting with folks to finding something to write about. And one thing he does a lot or used to do is he would write like review a year, like looking back on 1 year at like Stack Overflow, 2 years at Stack Overflow. I think that type of stuff is really nice for getting your work out there. So I think that's some of the best advice I've sort of gotten on writing and public work over the years.
Yeah, for me, what worked and maybe what might work for other people is just like producing things and getting it out there. So open source packages was a great sort of way to network with people, meet people, sort of prove that I can do the thing I want to do. Super good. So that's a good recommendation. And also the documentation, not being boring stuff. I throw weird stuff in my documentation all the time. I don't know if you've seen it. Kind of makes it fun. Hopefully not too like distracting. But yeah, I would just like get out there, produce things, talk about it, and then good things may happen.
I love that. Thank you. So I know there are a few questions we weren't able to get to. So I'm thinking, Rich and Michael, maybe I can gather those and they can be helpful for future blog posts too.
Definitely.
But one more question I wanted to ask you both. If you had 6 months to work on any other problem, what would you focus on? If you just magically had all this time suddenly.
I feel like one that's been haunting me is okay, so in 2020 I gave a talk on Suba, which was an attempt to port dplyr to Python. And because I was going nuts. I was a Python user. I really wanted like tidyverse style of data analysis. Today I feel like Polars is a really good option. Like I think it's good enough and it provides enough that it's the feel of the tidyverse and dplyr in Python. And that's been an absolute dream. I think if I had 6 months, I would take a good pass at like dbplyr for polars, like converting polars code to SQL. Because when I was doing data science, I used dbplyr nonstop. And so I think now that I'm happy with polars, I'm like finding myself wishing I could fire it off on any database. And I actually think that will probably happen eventually. Like there are great tools like narwhals that can run polars. Like you can use polars code, but actually run pandas. But I think that's, if I had 6 months, that is what I might swing at. Yeah, what do you got, Rich?
I think I would do stuff like data management or things that you can share with other people, like in a data organization that is useful in terms of like getting to grips with data or understanding data or seeing what's wrong with data. And there's more than enough for 6 months to do there. Like there's, and I don't know, I can sort of see that that's not focused on as much as it should be in the Python space. So that's probably what I would do.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with us here at the Hangout. And thank you all for the great questions today, too. Rich and Michael, are there any like recent blogs or anything you think we should all be checking out right now? Anything new coming out from GT or Great Tables we should be aware of this week?
I mean, there were a flurry of blog posts in December that if you haven't, seen them on the Great Tables blog. So just go to the Great Tables website, just search it up, and then look for great blog posts or blog. And there's like a smattering of new ones from last month.
Awesome. I'm going to put one here from the Posit blog as well, which was all about what you did with publication quality tables in 2024 too.
Also a good one, yeah.
Cool. Well, have a great rest of the day, everybody. It's so nice to see you and hope you're having a great start to the new year.